yeah, I just thought, you know what, we're just gonna go do it
Oh,
online.
that sounds good.
Yeah. Plus, you got good stuff. Let
Oh,
me
thank you.
let me. Why won't it let me do that? Strange. Am I on the wrong one? Nope. Oh, here we go. Edit. And then I'll just tag you.
Yeah, it worked out well that last week didn't happen because I was down in Bundaberg and Joel was in hospital, and I was going to message you the night before and just say, oh, can we change the show? But I just left it. I thought, oh, I'll just see how it pans out. And then, yeah, when you messaged me, I was like, oh, good, divine timing.
Well, I'm finding that a lot of things are happening like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's strange enough, but I mean, like even like I was telling you that I went to go and what is going on with that? I went to go and take care of the venues.
Yeah.
Or for the two shows we're going to do.
Yeah.
And the lady, that runs it was like, let me make sure this is good. Okay, we're good. She couldn't get back with us, and and I was trying to get in touch with her, and I called one number on the internet and it gave me some other business, and then there was another phone number I called and I got an answering machine. And
Are you
then
doing phone tag?
yeah, and then I walked in the door and she goes, "Oh my God, I've been looking for you. You've been on my list today." Because we're gonna do the show Sunday, 2 days from now. So anyway, it just worked out where like
Divine
that's
timing,
just like when I sent you that message. I sent you the message, and because we were leaving that day. And I had not been able to get to it. And then you sent the thing back, and I didn't even answer it back until I think today, but I just saw that. I thought, okay, here we go again. But yeah, so before we get started though, I mean, is Joel okay?
Yeah, he is. So he's back home now. We came back on the last Sunday, and he's on tablet antibiotics now. So seems to be, he had like a staph infection, even though the operation was nearly 2 months ago, it just still popped up. So yeah, no, he's all good.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, I've never talked to you guys individually.
Yeah, that's right.
And that show with him was, and I haven't been doing a lot of shows because of the network and just the festival and a bunch of stuff that's gone on, life. And
yeah, you're busy.
Yeah, so they've continue to be really great shows, but I really enjoyed it. I think we all got to know him a little bit, in his own right, and living in a household like you guys have is unique in its own, on its own. But and then to break it down to his experience, and then understanding that what you do and what he does are totally different, right?
Yes.
Which is another interesting part to it. Let's see there.
Definitely.
We're okay here. Yeah. And so, and then of course I remember back in like 2018, with your what do you call those? The things.
Oh, my crystal grids.
Yeah, your grids. Yeah, your crystal grids. And like you made one for Soulology. And I would put it out on the posts and stuff. But anyway, talking to him and realizing that you guys are different.
Yeah.
You do different things. So not only do you head a household that's wide awake, and full of the psychic and the paranormal by human standards, but you also have your own things that you do individually as well as together. So I thought, oh wow, that's amazing. So we had a great talk. I'm sure you saw it, and and I was looking forward to this one today. So let me just formally say, welcome back to SOULSPEAKS 5D, and it's Thanks, great to have you. Yeah, it's great to have you in here by yourself. I've always really felt your energy and Joel's energy, and even your family's energy. Very similar to the Elsa Dylan and her husband, even though I've just said hi to him one time. But yeah, there's just something about what I feel on a personal level when I'm present with you or him or the both of you, I can feel it, like it feels familiar and important. It feels important, to me. So I'm happy that you're here today.
Well, thank you so much. That's really kind.
No.
I feel the same. I felt like after both times when I've spoken to you, just the energy that you have, it's just amazing. It's like this divine, to me, like a father sort of energy, and it's just beautiful, I've got to say, and very familiar. Yes.
Yeah, that must be why my hair's falling out. Taking on the grandfather role or something. Yeah, so I know you do the crystal grids, and we got a lot of information from Joel on what he does and his experiences. Of course, we talked to the both of you and talked about the things that go on in your household. But I think maybe because I didn't realize there was such a diversity,
Yeah.
And because it's such a comprehensive thing to take on anyway, with everything that you guys have. It's not like a singular thing or two things. It's like a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But like, how did it, were you always like this? And
yeah, I feel like I've always been different. I think a lot of my life I used to mask a lot, you know what I mean? Like you sort of don't express exactly who you are when you, like I didn't really when I was younger, because you're just trying to fit in with others and things like that. So the biggest shift I think for me, like I probably about around 18, that's when I consciously felt that I started to connect with spirits and other things like that. But looking back as a kid, I do remember like in grade 4, my bedroom, I used to be scared to turn on the light in there and go in there in the dark. And for some reason, I used to imagine this cartoon skeleton, and I called it Skelly, and I'd go, hello, Skelly, and talk to it and then turn the light on. But now looking back, I'm thinking there probably was a spirit or something there that I was seeing as this cartoon skeleton. But I think there was communication when I was younger as a child. But I just didn't realize what that was, if that makes sense. So when my pop passed over, my dad's father, that was the first time I really had that conscious feeling of connecting with someone that had passed. So I was coming home from uni on a plane and had to fly through a storm, and it was like the whole thing had been hectic. I got on this plane, I was meant to go on one flight, get off, and then go on another, and then we got sent back to Brisbane. And then so by the time it was like a whole thing, after about 6 hours, I finally got on this flight, which would have only taken an hour to get home. And there was a storm, and I was freaking out. I was sitting there, and then beside me, there was no one. And then I felt a hand, just like a comforting hand, just like sit on my leg near my knee. And I could just feel the presence of my pop then. And that's sort of the first time. And then he came through, a fair few times. I remember doing a candle meditation and the candle flame going up really high, and then like the room was shut low, and that would go clockwise, stop, anti-clockwise, stop. And it was really him showing me that he was still there, that there was life after death, that sort of thing. So that was around that 18, 19-year-old mark. And then after that, it was just kind of like the gates opened, I guess. And then I had just a lot of experiences all the time. And ever since, it's been that way. So living in a lot of different rental houses when I was at university, there was a little girl in one house that I ended up passing over. She was like an earthbound, and I didn't know how to do that. So I had like a mentor at the time, a lady called Jane Manson, and she was a naturopath but energy worker and things like that. And she sort of told me what to do. And so that was really interesting. And I've been really lucky, I guess, like a lot of us in this sort of community, where the right people seem to come into your life at the right times to help guide you and things like that. So Jane was a mentor for a lot of years, probably about 8 years, when I was from about 20. yeah, when I was going through a lot of different things, as you do. And yeah, she was amazing. Joel and I both see a man called Nick Turner. He's an amazing healer. He calls him, he's on Facebook. His page is the Angel of Light. I'm pretty sure, I hope I got that right. And he's a lovely man. He lives down in Lismore, and he does, he spends a lot of his day in meditation. So to me, he's pretty much the clearest channel I think I've come across.
Really?
With what he downloads. Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. So he has helped Joel and I a lot. Joel had sessions with him before he and I were together. So since knowing Joel, I've had some sessions with Nick as well. So often it will be that Joel will ring him to have a session, like they can do it on Zoom and things. And then he'll be like, okay, now I need to talk to your partner. And then sometimes it'll be unexpected, and then he'll come through and do some work on me or have messages for me. And it's quite amazing. I can feel when he checks in on us, when he's sort of just popping in on the astrals, checking in, just because of his energy. And he's helped us a lot, actually, the last 6 years really, and Joel probably possibly longer. So I feel like, but the main thing for me, I guess, the big shift, I was like the end of 2012. That was a big awakening for me, a huge awakening. That was around the time that I had my major shift. And I talked about it, I think, on your first show when we were living at Moore Park and this massive craft just appeared and did like an activation on my friend and I, and it popped out a smaller one.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, that was the biggest shift, because after that was when I started making my crystal grids. It came through that was the work I needed to do.
What year did you start making your crystal grids?
So that was the start of 2013,
Okay.
Yeah, it was in December that happened, that activation, and it was pretty much the start of 2013. Because I'd been collecting crystals until then, but not really, meditating with them or carrying them and things, but not actively sort of doing what I do now with them. So that kind of evolved from then.
And when did you, just for reference, when did you hook up with Joel? What year?
We met in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so this is a little bit different than a lot of the people that have come through SOULSPEAKS 5D, in that you kind of got activated 18, 19 versus 28, 29, 30, whatever, and stayed with it. I remember talking to you, I believe, if I'm correct, when you and Joel hooked up, I think obviously he was already getting some kind of sessions, but I think if I remember correctly, he still had a ways to go, or he didn't quite fully jump in with both feet. I'm just curious, like, how quick did that happen? I mean, were you open with him from the beginning?
Yeah, I was. And I laugh about it now, because I remember I bought him a crystal pendant and he said, "Oh, I won't wear that." And then within 2 or 3 years of living together and being surrounded by everything, he loves wearing crystals now. And but yeah, I think he's always had spirits and things come through to him. But I think with his upbringing, and he was a lot, he's a fitter and turner, so he's very much into his trade and tuning cars and things. So he was really big into cars when I met him. He's very clever with his car tuning and things. It's like a special gift he's got. But I've noticed since we've been together, that's dropped off a lot. It just has. And now he's really, like, I feel as though he's accelerated beyond my abilities. I mean, not that it's a competition, but I feel like with his meditation and just the things that he does on the astrals now, I feel like he's just sort of, when I met him, it probably wasn't happening as much, but now it's just like he's just springboarded off, which is amazing. Yeah.
Do y'all ever like do stuff together consciously, or attempt to?
Look, honestly, I think that's something we need to do more. I feel as though, I mean, it's not an excuse, but being busy with the kids and things, I find it even a bit tricky to block in time for myself. So we haven't really done that too much. I mean, we do go out and look for the UFOs and things down that we've got a spot at the beach, and they always turn up. So we go and do that sort of thing. Yeah. They haven't come down low like that first one I saw in 2012, but they always sort of appear. So we do that together, but I think we need to do more meditating together and more of that conscious thing. I think that's the next part of where we're going to evolve to, because I think at the moment it's probably, well, Nick said to me, he said the other day, he said, you know, you're not meditating every day. You need to be, otherwise you're not going to reach your potential. And I was like, yeah, I know. He said, and don't tell me you're too busy. I said,
yeah. How many kids do you have in your house?
Straight away.
Yeah.
Straight away, I'm too busy. But that's not true. You can carve time out. You really can. So I've made that a priority again the last few weeks, and it has helped a lot.
Do you have any idea or impression of why and what the connection is with these craft and those things associated with it?
Yeah, look, I think I had a lot of things come through. I thought they were dreams. This is in my early 20s, but obviously now I realize it wasn't dreams. It was things that happened. So to begin with, there was a couple of ones where one of them I was up on, I think it was a reptilian ship. So it wasn't the best experience, but it was so vivid. I remembered it. And it was weird because my mum was there. So I was on the ship and there was this massive big screen in front of us. It was like a big foyer area. And there was a big reptilian face. It was like the leader or whatever. He was projected on the screen, and it there was my mum, myself, and another woman, and he was making us do yoga and all these different poses. And it was just weird. And then at the end of it, then I had, like, in my pockets were these two, you know, the old school phone handsets, like on the old, those phones. I had one in each pocket and they were glowing in the dream. And he said, "I love child." And then they pulled me into this other room. And then they took those handsets out of my pockets and then made me watch as they shot them at this planet, and it destroyed this planet, and made me watch. And that was my home planet.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was like traumatizing, obviously.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
I still get upset when I remember it. And then after that, he said, "Okay, because you've helped us, we're going to let you go." So he took my mum and I to this other room. And I remember it was just full of food. Like there was just food everywhere, like a banquet. And I chose 2 eggs, which was weird. Just 2 little eggs. And then the dream ended. And
wow.
Yeah, so that was a not so good experience. But I think looking into that, like they talk about different planets that have been destroyed in the wars and stuff. And I honestly believe, because one of my main guides is Lyran, I do think that that's like connected to, you know, things that have happened in the past or a past life. And like that came through so strongly. That was like when I think I was only about 23 or something at the time. And I wrote it down, even though I thought, God, that's weird. But I wrote it down in a journal. And I'm glad I did. So that was bizarre, but I've had other dreams that have been good. That's pretty much the only sort of bad one, but that was quite intense. I've had a dream when I was about 2 years after that. I was getting just like my heart would sort of it felt like it was missing a beat sometimes in real life. And I remember thinking, I better go to the doctor and get it checked. And then I went to sleep that night, and in the dream I was up on a craft. And I could see it from the outside. So it was a round craft. It's like I was zooming in, and then I could see around the outside of it was glass, and there was all these like beds, and there was hundreds of people lying on these beds, which would have been, and I was one of them as well. And then there was beings, about 3 or 4 around each bed. And then I went from looking out at it to being in my body, and I was getting shocked, like they were putting the paddles on me because I could hear them talking, saying there's something wrong with the heart, da da da. And then they're like, we're losing her. And then they started to do the paddle thing, and I was lifting off the bed. And then this was all like telepathy. And then they said, oh my God, she's awake. She's not meant to be awake. And I remember looking up, and like these beings were like, it's hard to describe. All I could see was the outline of like a cloak.
Right.
But where their face would be was like a galaxy. It was like stars. So I could just see their outlines, and then like galaxy there. And that's what they look like. And then I woke up, and it was morning, and I was in my bed, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then the palpitation thing stopped. I wasn't getting that anymore. And I thought, oh, they've healed me. Like, and at the time I still didn't know about, I didn't know anything about the ETs or anything like that. But I thought, well, I've had a healing in that dream, whoever they were, that's pretty cool. And then fast forward to, 2012. And then when I saw that big craft, and then I started researching, and then the first lot that I came across was the Pleiadians. And then, I found all these people on Facebook like you, and, like Rion Diruwan, I've always followed his stuff. And then I learned more and more about all the different beings and stuff. And then, then I would think back to those like dreams, and I'm like, okay, this is making more sense now. So I think it's all connected in the way, I guess they've slowly shown me or helped me. And then I've been able to be conscious of that, even though at the time I didn't really understand the extent of it. But now as I'm older, I can look back and go, oh, that happened and that happened. And I can it's like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
And I think that big craft that showed itself to my friend and I honestly believe they had to come like that because I was with my son's father, my ex, and he was like very abusive, alcoholic. And I was very much felt trapped in that relationship. And I think that they realized that I needed something big to like awaken me, to get me on the right path, because I was very much headed down the wrong path. So I think that's why because it was very low. It was only about 100 meters above us. It was this huge ship the size of a football field. So I think they needed to show up in a big way to really like sort of shock and wake me up. And so I think that's sort of how it's connected. And I can't help but wish that one of us had their phone so we could have captured it. But
if it would have showed up.
But then I just think that's just ego, like it did what it was meant to do. I don't have to prove to the world that happened, but there is that bit of you that's like, wow, that would have been good footage.
Do you so like the crystal grids, like do you and you may have kind of spoke to this, but like do you have a sense of what your star family might be trying to get you to wake up to do in terms of purpose? Is it I realize running a household in 2023 as a fully open conduit, divine feminine, that's full time. But and then of course the crystal grid part of it, but it just feels to me like that a lot like the Dillon's household, that there's some type of purpose that's involves your little collective there, that and maybe it starts with something that you pulled in. I don't know. Can you speak to that?
I think that, like we're kind of, I think it's going to become more obvious as we go along. Like I think at the moment, like Joel's sort of doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, but I think what I have channeled a lot when I've meditated and that is that they've told me ambassador. That's the word that keeps coming up. So they've said you'll be like an ambassador between the star people and humans, because when they show up, which I believe they will en masse, I think there will be a lot of fear. There will be a lot of for those who have had no sort of, you know, exposure to that. And it's interesting because that ambassador thing started coming up around 2013.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, that's weird. And I wrote it down. But as the years have gone on, I've heard more and more people in these fields talk about being an ambassador. And I thought, wow, okay, so that's a thing. Like there's other people that are getting the same downloads. So I think there's just must be thousands with the same sort of, you know, the same sort of mission, and whether how that unfolds, I'm not sure. But like in this life, I don't work as a teacher now, but I am a trained primary teacher. And I've had visions of teaching in different, I don't know if it's a different planet or where, but, you know, teaching, like doing healing, teaching and crystals and that sort of thing, you know. So I think it all links up eventually. Certainly, I know that Jasmine, our daughter, like she loves my crystals as well. And she like plays with them. Like if I've made a grid, she'll happily come along and deconstruct it and make her own as well. Right. Bodhi used to do a little bit when he was little, but he's not as connected with them, which is totally fine. He's got a running joke. He used to always tease me and say, oh, they do nothing. Just to be cheeky. But
be careful what you say.
Yeah, well, he's cheeky because when he's sick or something, he'll ask for crystals. I'm like, oh, but I thought they did nothing. So, but certainly I think for him, like he's very good with his guitar and I think he loves to perform. So I think that's a big thing for him. He doesn't seem to get any anxiety or performance anxiety the way that Joel and I would. So I think that that's sort of his niche, I guess. But in general, look, I'd love one day to be part of a community, you know, in person, a physical community where like-minded people could all live and share our gifts and that sort of thing. I just think that would be amazing. I know that some places that's already begun. So I hold a lot of hope for that sort of thing because I just think that that's one thing sort of missing in society. We all live in these separate little houses and, you know, get busy with work and all these 3D things. And then you sort of like, there's always feels like there's something sort of missing. And I think that's what it is. It's the, well, you know, these gatherings.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to entertain from my perspective because doing the show over the years and then traveling around and interacting with a lot of people, I've watched a lot of people try to do it.
Yeah.
And just to be blunt, I mean, there was just too much, you could say 3D or old paradigm involving possession and ego and you know, but what I've noticed is organically and naturally over the last few months, I've heard more people talking about it. I've seen more people getting displaced and moving that direction, even if they're living by themselves in a van. And I feel like that it's occurring. And the other reason is because these people that I'm referring to are in the deep waters of the experience like you and your family. They're not superficial. They're very much deep into what we've all been experiencing. The other thing was that you were talking about. You know, again, like I look at it from March 1st. March 1st seems to be, for me anyway, was like the new Earth Day, like the new year, the new everything. And and I've noticed that, and of course, that's when we got the download to move off of social media and start making that transition, which we should complete within a couple of more months. And so I started to see things like a lot of us, our third eye is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We're having more. And then you start to see people's narratives, be they someone who's publicly posting stuff or having a conversation like this, you know, in private or whatever the case is. And that is that a lot of the narratives and the intel are starting to fall into alignment. They're starting to converge and meet. They're saying it a little bit different, and then all of a sudden it's all the same thing they're saying. And one of the things that they're saying is that this equinox is really huge, like never before. And I can attest to it in my few days here, 5 days in Sedona so far, because it's just been whack. But the other thing they're pointing to after this equinox in my words, because I can't do their words justice or quote them verbatim, would be that mastery is available as of this time. Like the masculine, feminine, the golden child, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is we have full access to be fully embodied as a soul in the body. Now, the next one coming up is the eclipse in mid-October. And I've seen several different people say this in their own way, and that is that Star Family is going to begin communicating with us directly on an individual basis. I just want to know, like, if you can speak to that, and if you feel like, if that resonates with you, do you feel like that's something that will be occurring? Because obviously people have talked about the Flash for years, and these different things are going to happen, and you know what I mean? But to me, it feels right. But I don't want to, ask a leading question. What are your thoughts on, at least like you referred to earlier, thousands of us, or whatever the case is, are starting to have direct physical communication with Star Family? Do you think that's something that is upon us?
I would think so, yeah. Like, I don't have any timelines for things, but I definitely think so. I've always felt like when they talk about the Flash and that sort of thing, my guides just sort of showed me that it would just be as simple as just waking up one day and you're just in the new earth, like everything's shifted. And I know, and I don't know exactly how that looks or whatnot, but I know what you mean about the energy feeling different.
Right.
Because I felt like I've done a lot of shadow work and things for especially the last year, even up until even like a week or two ago, honestly, like just a lot of old density that came up just to be shifted and moved through, and finally sort of released. So I know what you mean about feeling that new energy coming in. It does feel like that. It feels like there's unlimited sort of potential there ready, and it's just a matter of aligning our energy to it and sort of just stepping through it, I guess. And then my session with Nick the other week, that was a good sort of reminder to me, because he said to me, you've been in the darkness too long. And I knew exactly what he meant, because I've been transmuting all this stuff. He's like, you've just got to go back to the basics, meditating every day. He said it will help you a lot. And it was, I mean, I do meditate. I was meditating here and there, but it honestly, it was hard to get back to doing that daily. And I felt like I was blocked.
Yeah.
It took at least a week of doing it to finally, the meditation to be flowing again and feeling easy and that sort of thing. And I thought, there really is something to that. So, but definitely it does. It feels like, like the potential's there for it to change. So yeah, bring it on. It'd be great. It'd be a really good one. And especially
yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, I guess like when we saw Mary, and she sort of said the same thing about meditating and connecting with your guides, making that a priority.
So Mary,
and like I said, Joel's been better at that than what I have. So that's my thing from now on, is making it a daily, setting aside that time daily to really connect in, because otherwise the distraction, it's just, about what it's like, and everyone would know, you just get so busy and caught up with life in 3D if you don't set that time aside.
So Mary, and for those of you who don't know, Mary Rodwell, our beloved sister. So Mary, and I think maybe this Nick gentleman as well. It sounds like that what they were advising was a little bit more, meditation specific to connecting with guides and soul families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Mary said, like in her session, a certain amount of guides came through, and she said, well, now you'll more and more will come through the more you connect, and they will reveal themselves more the more that you put your intent is into that. And that makes sense, because if you're not putting the time in, I guess they're not going to reveal much, yeah, no, that was amazing, that session with her. She's really good at what she does. Yeah, and she said there was two sort of options. She said you can go, because I talked to her about those experiences and those dreams and things. She said we can go right back into it and pull that all out, or would you rather sort of meet your guides and kind of was more felt future forward, future looking sort of thing. So that's why I opted for that, because I thought, well, those past experiences are gone, and I thought I'd rather know more about my guides and things, to move forward. So that's why I chose that option. And you can tell, I think with Mary, there's a lot more that goes on than she does, than what she lets on, because she was getting me to try and describe my guide, everything like that. And then she, I think, was seeing the same thing. And then she was just making sure that I was channeling correctly, like, that it was what I was getting through was the same as what she was getting. I think she's, very amazing lady.
I've known a few people that have had sessions with her. And obviously I've probably done 15 shows with her over the years. But I love her to death, She couldn't come on the last one that we had scheduled. But the people, you, Joel, I think talking to Elsa about the girls, when they went to talk, her girls, some of her kids talked to Mary. They did some work together. But I didn't realize, and I think you described it well, there's more going on than what's being said, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And that's
impressive. So humble. She's so humble, and
she's,
I would say she's probably a master channeler and so many more things, and healer and things, but she doesn't call herself that.
Right.
She's very humble, but you can just tell that. Feel that there's so much.
Yeah. She's an OG, no doubt about it. Original goddess. There's no doubt about it. She's got some fire too. That's what I love about her. Now, since you and your family went to see her earlier this year, because I know Joel talked about it. He talked about his session with her and kind of like you're doing now. And then of course with the guidance of meditate more, bring in your guides, more and more will show if you have the intent. And I think that's really great advice, by the way. That the intent, the wanting to have that connection. Have you had more guides since then show themselves, or more consciousnesses or aspects of you?
I haven't had any different ones, but the ones that came through, like some of them I'd felt were there anyway, but other ones that came through, like this morning I was meditating. So where our bed faces, the sun's coming up. So I was doing a meditation, a YouTube one, Athena and Sakal. I don't know if you've heard of them. They do amazing free meditations on YouTube. I did one of those, and as I was doing it, I had my eyes shut, but I thought, I'm just going to squint my eyes a bit because I could see the sunlight coming in. And it's interesting because in some photos, like a lot of photos actually over the last 4 years that I've had, there was some of my daughter and I at the Botanic Gardens, and in certain photos you can see these little it's like little beings, like their faces, and you can see more the dots, these eyes, like a few of them around. And I had my eyes sort of squinting, and I could see with the sunlight the same little dots. There was about 3, and my guide said that's the Arcturians.
Wow.
Because Joel had seen the photos too over the years, and he said that's definitely something there. And I said, I don't know what they are. And then this morning I could see the little dots, like the little eyes, a few little sets, and then they said that's the Arcturians showing themselves. When I went to Mary, she said it came through that I had 8 Arcturians, like and they help me with my gridding and stuff. So that was interesting just this morning that came through, and I thought, well, that makes sense because they're very high vibrational. So it would make sense that maybe you could just see their little eyes poking out, you know, because 3D is quite dense for them, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and tell me about your grids, your crystal grids specifically when you create these. Is there a general purpose, you know, that you're fulfilling? How does that work?
So what I kind of do, so I've done my full like Reiki training. I don't really put that on my page, but I've done Reiki, I've done different things. But my grids, I did do a crystal course like in 2010 or something, I think, where we learnt about putting layouts on people. So lying on a meditation bed, putting crystals on spots for certain things. And the grids is usually, I do that when I'm doing it from a distance. So if I'm doing it for an actual person, the middle crystal is like a proxy for them. So I imagine they're in the center, and then the grid around them, it's like around their aura, I guess. So it's like if I do it for a person, I imagine they're in the middle, and then it's like around them. If I'm doing it generally like for humanity, then I'll point the quartz points outwards so the energy goes out. But if it's for one person, I usually point the quartz in because it's going into that center point and that focal point on that person. Sometimes I imagine they're just the one in the middle. Other times it's like a longer grid where it's working around, imagining they're lying there. So like the top bit would be working around their head, body, and then going down. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, some of the ones
when you do it for a person, then that's kind of it sounds like aligning their meridians, or you know, aligning their, right?
Yeah, and just clearing and blockages, things, you know, darker where energy's collected, or things like that. And it's sort of like that, I guess, you know, when they talk about quantum healing, you know, it doesn't matter where they are on the earth, you can still send energy to that person or that place. I think in the future, like, I know I'll be guided to do more grid work, like actually around the planet and that sort of thing. Like, but at the moment it's just, you know, tricky with traveling and stuff with the kids. But I would definitely, Joel and I've talked about going around Australia and taking the kids, so that's maybe something we might look at doing. But yeah, so I think it will definitely get bigger, I guess. But for the gridding, and then what I basically do, I've got like a toolkit with different drawers with the crystals in different colors. So it's just channeling. I just meditate, and then it's just literally I look through all the crystals I've got, and it's just a matter of my guides will tell me that one, and just choosing them all out. Then I put them all down, and then it's arranging them and just working with the energies that way. And then sometimes I will get messages through for the person, but it's more just around doing the energy work for me.
Like a tune-up.
Yeah.
Like a tune-up.
Yeah. Because I've always felt like, for me, I've always been really sensitive to crystals. I know everyone has different abilities and things. For me, when I can hold crystals, some, you know, you'll get different sensations. Sometimes I'll get energy shooting down my legs, just all sorts of different things depending what the crystal is. So I know that I've been told I've worked in crystal healing centers back in Atlantis and Lemuria and different things. So I think it's definitely come from work in past lives as well. And then it was just reactivating it. And I think that ship or whatever in 2012, that definitely just reactivated everything. And so that's when it kind of, just really took off. And then I love it now because I've noticed that crystal gridding is getting more popular. Like there was a lot more books written now about it. There's a lot more groups on Facebook, and it's just so nice to see people all around the world doing them.
I remember when you started yours, I didn't see much of that. And I have people send me stuff, obviously over the years, they'll send me stuff, what they're doing, if, want to come on a show or whatever. I mean, you never even pushed that. You just started, I remember you made that one for Soulgy, and then I remember going in your group, and I would see all your, these things that were, less frequently seen, like that, even like light language and different things like that are becoming more common.
That's right.
It's
amazing. Hey, and in such a short period,
right,
you know, because that's really what, about 10 years since I've been doing them, and I've noticed it's
10 years
becoming a lot more. And it's funny, I can look back on ones I did back at the start, and it's just, you can see the progression. It's so different, and it's great. But I just love to see going on the different crystal gridding groups, and just to see all these different, it seems to be mostly women that do it, I've noticed, but there are some men that do it as well. But I love seeing what other people create, and because like I do art and things as well. I'm a writer as well. So I kind of dabble in a lot of things, but the crystals is
do you write, put any of your writing out? Or is it something you just do?
I have written. Sometimes I used to write poetry that went with my crystal grids. So especially if you look back probably 2-3 years ago, I remember
that. I remember that.
I've just been writing. I've just nearly finished a book. So, and it's more around because I got an autism and ADHD diagnosis recently. So it was just around the last year writing about that process, what that involved, because our our kids are both neurodivergent, which for us, like, I know it's like a starseed thing and that, but to be able to cope in regular schools and stuff like that, you kind of need the labels, because otherwise the understanding's not there, the support's not there. So I've just written a book about that process, and I'm going to just publish it on, I think, Amazon Kindle. I decided in the end. So
that's really cool. I mean, and not to take anything away from anyone, but there are a lot of books out there that are, and rightfully so, because this is what this platform is all about. The story, and here's my gifts. And so that's why a lot of times over the years, on the shows, I'm asking or re-asking a question or a deeper explanation that will, kind of penetrate to the human rationale, or the human logic, or the human experience, or the human perspective. So I think it's really cool that you are putting a book out that's functional and practical in real time, because that's really the best information now. Is like, this is like, how many people are speaking to the subject matter that you're speaking to in the way that you're speaking it. It's one thing to say, hey, this is going on, and these are actually characteristics of being a starseed, but let's take it a step further. Let's take it into the human experience. How are they going to function? How can you navigate this? So I commend you on that. That's great. And I hope to see more people doing stuff like that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, because there is certain sensitivities and things that it is hard to, like for me, and you can say it's just being an empath too, but I've had all the diagnosis, so it's all done. But crowded places, if I get really hot, I get overwhelmed, that sensory sensitivity, like noise, and whether people believe in autism, ADHD or not, to me, it to have the diagnosis helps, because then you can get the support, right? So for our daughter, like, since she goes to all these different and we found some amazing therapies, like her and I together have been doing one called Tomatis, and it's a music therapy. So you're listening, the guy that developed it, he's actually an ENT, I think he's French, so an ears, nose and throat specialist, and he it's all like sort of scientifically backed, but basically they use mostly Mozart's music, and you listen to it through these special headphones, and what they do is they test you at the start, so your hearing can be good, but then your actual perception of it and how your brain processes it cannot be so good. So they did all the testing for Jasmine and I, and And what it sort of showed up was my left and right ear, like one was having to work a lot harder than it should because the other one wasn't processing, even though my hearing is perfectly fine. And that's what she said to me. And this is before I was diagnosed. And she said, well, what we've come up with, what we can see is that your profile, instead of sort of being the smooth perception of the sound, it was quite jagged and stuff. And she said, this is very common with people who have autism or whatnot. It's how your brain's actually processing the sound. So these headphones have like it sits on your bone conductor there, because apparently you conduct sound through the ears, but it's also through your bones and the vibration. So once they do the testing, then you sort of listen, it's like 16-day blocks, and you listen for an hour to this classical music. But the way they've changed the levels and things, it actually, it's meant to help your brain and everything, like your ears and everything, process better. And it's interesting because we've done 2 sessions, like 2 blocks now, 16 days. We're just like, you have a break in between. And so our daughter was so restrictive on eating the way some autistic kids are, and, you know, wouldn't eat things together and stuff like that. And we've noticed since this second block now, like the other day, she'll eat a salad wrap with foods together in a wrap, and it's like you fall over in shock because, you know, prior to that she wouldn't try a lot of foods, or just no. And but not just that, just behaviorally as well, she's coping better. So that's been a really good therapy, and she's just started up play therapy again as well, which is really cool. So they go to a play therapist. There's a room with different toys, sand trays, so they can do sensory stuff. And it's basically because kids won't be able to talk in a counseling session like adults. So they express more through art or playing. Themes and stuff will come up for them, but it's just more natural because it's in a way that the kids is natural to them, which is through play. So she's back to doing that because she did it a while ago, and then the therapist left town because we're in a smaller town. And then we just found another lady. And then when I met her, she's awake, I think. You know, she's playing solfeggio music really low in the background. She was showing me, she said she teaches them tapping. You know, like when they do tapping for anxiety and things, she said I can teach her that. So it's really good because we're finding other therapies beyond the speech pathology or the occupational therapy, which is all really good and helps too. But I really like the fact that they're branching out, you know, more into other things as well. And I can see that it's working. It's helping her a lot. And I just said to Joel, I said, imagine if this was around when we were kids, because Joel just recently, he got the same diagnosis, ADHD, like the non-hyperactive type, and autism. So the reason we both went for that was after Jasmine was diagnosed and I started reading about how it presents. And I'm like, oh, it just explained a lot of things I struggle with.
I wonder if it's, I'm curious. I mean, I wonder if, because of you could say the family dynamics, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if it's something that appears characteristically as a result of the collective energy in your household, you know, like, or maybe it gets amplified and comes out more or something. That's interesting. Because it is, and again, I really commend you for, not that I'm anyone, you know, but I'm just saying that it's good to hear people talking about this beyond here, take this pill or go to the special class, you know, but actually take into consideration the lineage, you know, involved with the, you know, the materialization of, you know, the characteristics that it has. And of course, the lack of stigma attached to it, you know, like there's so much put out by big pharma, you know, trying to stigmatize, you know, normalize these especially these young people who are actually well ahead of the rest of the crowd, you know. And because that's one thing I've noticed with these types over the last 10 years is they have a mind of their own, and they're connected to, you know, they're connected to their soul, and they're able to, or their focus is to move that direction. Of course.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yep.
Yeah.
And we So we find CBD is really good, CBD oil. So Joel and I both take that. Our son does now too. And Jasmine, she's pretty young, so we don't want her on anything at the moment, but I won't be putting her on any big pharma sort of stuff at all.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't judge people that do, because I understand, you know, sometimes you need certain things at certain times, but yeah, like definitely, like our son was on Ritalin for about 3 years because he was homeschooled by me because he was getting so bullied at school.
Right.
He was not able to function in a regular classroom. He went on Ritalin for a few years, and then the dosage wasn't working. We tried to up it, and he was getting these horrible heart palpitations and clammy sweats, and we went, okay, that's done now. So he just takes CBD now, and he was starting to actually get really depressed after 3 years on that medication. He was starting to get depressed as a child, and I was really starting to get worried. So we just went, no, that's done. The pediatrician went, well, it can't hurt to try CBD. Yeah, so now he still struggles with the attention in class, but his teachers, they're pretty good. They understand. She's got a daughter that's ADHD. She's like, if I see him fidgeting, I'll send him on a job if he needs to have a break or a movement break. And that's the main thing we're trying to do with the diagnoses, is just so the teachers understand, so they do support them properly. They get movement breaks, they can use fidget toys, you know, just that if they need to go regulate, because I don't think it,
I think it's, you know,
you need that support. And I don't think any kids can really sit in a classroom still.
Well,
I don't think it's fair on anyone.
The more I think about this and reflect on over the years with the people I've met, kids and adults, you know, I'm wondering if this is the natural way that we move through things. And these individuals are carrying that natural propensity, but they're having to fight against, you know, resistance, basically. Labels systems, and, you know, but that, you know, that's really how we are. I've been called ADHD, like it's something bad, you know, or you know, I'm fidgety, or I'm not present. I am present, but I just have all these things going on all the time.
That's right.
And I find it normal, you know.
Well, that's right. And it's things like eye contact, you know, people expect others to give them eye contact, or they think they don't listen. Well, a lot of neurodivergent people, it's painful to have to give constant eye contact, and they can actually listen better if they're not having to focus on the eye contacts. It's things like that. And you know, and I sort of grew up masking and just trying to fit in. And whereas now, like for me, this diagnosis has really helped me, because I'm like, oh, it is okay. I understand why I've struggled and this and that, you know. And it's not to say that defines me as a person, but it just helps me to function in society, knowing that there's a reason why I'm struggling with certain things, and that's okay. Like, but that is, the stigma is big, I think. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful when people try and use those things in a negative way, like, oh, you're so ADHD, or you know,
I've had
that's so OCD, or things like that. Or the worst one is when people go, oh, we're all a little bit autistic, and you're like, well, not really. You either are or you aren't. Like, so it's like, it's sort of, it's interesting.
No, it's good you're bringing it up. I will I really as we're formulating things with the network, I'm trying to formulate, we're going to try to do it with some collaborators this week, and get some things loosely structured, or you know, kind of reoccurring things. And I'd like to, and I will reach out to you and Joel, because I'd like to see if, you know, we can get something going on a regular basis. I'm going to reach out to Mary and a few other people that we've done shows with on a consistent basis, and just kind of see where it goes. But yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from, you know, your household, and from you, and from Joel, and even from your kids, and certainly from the stories. But listen, thanks so much for coming in, and thank you for your patience and me getting back with you. And I'll reach out.
much.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you, you and Joel soon, and I wish you the best always. Thank you so much.
Todd, yeah, always a pleasure. Hey, it's lovely to talk to you.
Okay,
Take care and enjoy Sedona.
I will.